Welcome to another episode of the Peak Potential Success Show. My name is Fong, and today we have another fascinating guest. This guest comes highly recommended by lots of people out there. He is a world-renowned physician. He has over 25 plus years of experience as a freelance doctor. He's involved with Doctors Without Borders, so he knows what he's talking about when it comes to health and how we can actually stay healthy. He truly believes that the root cause of a lot of diseases out there is related to the stresses in our lifestyle. When it comes to lifestyle choices, lifestyle management, all that kind of stuff relates to our stresses, which then leads to diseases if we're not managing that stuff correctly. He teaches people how to live a balanced stress life, how to be more optimized when it comes to our health, live longer, live happier, and have higher performance as well. He also stresses the importance of HRV, which is the heart rate variability, and I'm sure we're going to jump into that a little bit more details later on. Another thing he truly believes is that we should really stop focusing that much on treating illness, but treating our well-being, preventing that illness altogether, and try and improve our quality of life because that's where it all starts. So that's something that's very, very important because a lot of people just kind of put that into the back burner and don't worry about it until it becomes an issue. He's the author of the book Pulse Cure and also Camera Cure. So please welcome world-renowned physician, documentary filmmaker, author, and also an award-winning photographer, Dr. TORKIL FAERO.
Thank you, Fong. It's great to be here. Yeah,
Hey,
it was a
awesome.
very nice introduction. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. It's always a joy speaking with people that is as expert as you are when it comes to health, wellness, and how we're able to really combat our lifestyle so that we can live longer, happier. Lots of people are
Hmm.
so focused on, okay, making money, working hard, building our businesses, and then all of a sudden they forget about the health part. And that's something I
Yeah,
think is very, very important in this day and age.
absolutely, because health is your biggest asset, that's the most important thing you have. And if you don't have health, it's not a good base for a wealth. So it's really important for everyone. And then particularly tracking, as you're saying, using heart rate variability, our heart rate as a guide to the good choices that makes you live longer and be more productive as well.
I find it very funny that lots of people goes, ah, well, I'll worry about that later. But then the thing is, just think about having one night where you can't breathe because your nose is so stuffed up, how horrible that is.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
that's just a
exactly.
very minor thing. So people should
Mm.
really focus more on their quality of life and how they can make the right lifestyle choices and manage that properly. Now,
Mm.
what was your background? Like, how did you get to focusing on helping people with these choices and these strategies? Because it's not a path that most people take when they become a doctor.
Yeah, so I worked for, I think, maybe 15 years as a normal doctor, or I still do that, but only doing what normal doctors do, which is prescribing pills and referring people to procedures and so on. But when I was 44, my father died at 73, and I just realized that my lifestyle is not compatible with a long life. So I had to reorient myself and find out how can I live longer and healthier. And I understood that there have been so many things happening since I studied medicine then in the last millennium. And I needed to learn how to live healthier, so I had 40 pounds extra weight that I've lost now. I did not exercise at all. I was not caring about what I was eating. I was working night shifts as a doctor, not thinking about stress or sleep I was thinking, "Yeah, I can sleep when I'm dead, this attitude." But then I understood that the current knowledge in medicine about lifestyle and how it will affect your health and longevity is so important. And well, I turned everything around. And the last 6 years, I've been using wearables to track this because what is good for you becomes visible in the heart rate. And, the Garmin watches, the Aura rings, all the smart rings and watches we have these days, so many people have them, can be used to track our health. And they will also use their algorithms, the artificial intelligence, and can really help us manage our own health so that we can take control and so that the control of our health is not only in the hands of the physicians and doctors and practitioners after you get sick, but you can do something to prevent you getting sick in the first place. And I've written then book about it called The Pulse Cure. It's been just a terrible success in Norway for 2 years. It's still on the bestseller list after 2 years. Been translated into 7 languages, including English, of course, because it's the first book in the world actually as a guidebook on how to use these wearables and then connect it to lifestyle changes, regarding sleep, nutrition, exercise, what to do with alcohol, how to be better at rest. And rest is important also for performance. If you really want to perform well, you need to be well rested, like Warren Buffett or, lots of the really good high achievers, they are really good at deliberate rest as well, just as deliberate action. So having this balance will both keep you from getting sick or reduce the chances. Of course, everybody can get sick, but it will reduce the chances dramatically, as well as giving you more well-being and a higher performance level. So it's all positive.
Very, very cool. Now, when you were making that decision of, hey, I need to do something different now, that things weren't very aligned, what were some of the first few things that you changed in your everyday life that you notice big improvements with?
That was quitting alcohol. I used to drink a couple of glasses of wine every day. That was doctor's orders at the time. It was considered healthy. 2 glasses of wine for men and one for women. And I said, yes, that's great, thank you.
Must be
But
a male
once you
doctor, right?
start, what's that?
Must be a male doctor. Listen, males, it's great with two
It was,
two glasses of wine.
yeah, but it was recommended across the board. It was like a standard recommendation. And that is because the people who had 2 glasses of wine would live longer than the ones who did not drink that amount. But later we have found out that being lonely is so toxic. So that is probably the effect because it's not the alcohol in itself, but the fact that those who were drinking that amount was probably more prone to be social and having good relationships with whom they were drinking. So that was the cause and not the wine in itself. So that is why, of course, when you see on your wearables and record your stress levels, you see that alcohol is the worst thing you can do for your health. And once I quit alcohol, I had so much more energy. So, and when you see this on your wearables and you can see it on your heart rate variability, that is just kind of a biometric for your stress levels. Then, of course, when you quit alcohol, your life changes really. So, that was the first thing. And then I did, of course, lots of other things. Started prioritizing sleep, started prioritizing what I was eating, exercising somewhat, not too much. And you don't really need to change your life all around and be careful of your health, 24/7. If you can do half an hour or 1 hour a day, something that will help you stay healthy, that's enough. And then I'm talking about not about health optimization, but health normalization, bionormalization, so that your body works as it's supposed to do, from nature. So it's less a matter of not hurting your immune system and your nervous system, so that it can work properly and do its job. That is what we are about.
You mentioned sleep was the second thing that you kind of focused on and how to manage that properly. You also mentioned how some of the high performers out there are able to do very focused sleep. I think that's what it is. What there's people out there that goes, well, yeah, I don't need that much sleep. I only need 4 hours, 5 hours a day. I've seen people who are very, very high performers that function on 3, 4 hours of sleep on a long-term basis. Is that true?
Hmm.
Or is that something that eventually it's going to catch up on them?
It's gonna catch up on them, and it is true that for some people, but that's a very small minority. It's like winning the lottery or something that you can actually function on that small amount of sleep. And it's not only uncomfortable or less productive sleeping that short time, but it's also dangerous for you. It will increase the chance of getting cancer. So research has shown that if you sleep less than 6 hours compared to more than 7 hours, you double your risk of cancer. So, and we didn't know that earlier. Sleep has been important in the medical school, maybe only the last 10 years that we learn about this and understand the importance of sleep. So it's really a dangerous thing. And it doesn't even help you achieve your goals. You're not performing as well if you're underslept as if you have been sleeping well. So it's it's a short-term solution maybe for, a couple of weeks and a month, but over a long time, you're not going to do well.
So what's that magic range? You mentioned 6 hours
Hmm.
and below is bad. So above 6 hours, between 6 and 8 kind of thing?
Yeah, so 7 hours would be probably the best. Somewhere around 7 hours, maybe 7.5 hours. It's all individual, so it may depend on yourself. And what these watches and rings do is that they find out how your body and your physiology is working. Because even if an average best would be 7 hours, the average for you could be 6.5 or even 8 or 9. So you need to take into consideration your bio individuality. And so that is important. But for most people, it would be around 7 hours. And that would be 7 hours effective sleep and not just the time in bed. So your wearable would show you how much time you have been actually sleeping. And that's usually, at least for me and for most people, maybe half an hour less than I would think. So, for me, 7 hours is a good number.
No, I know I'm one of these people who goes, okay, I'm gonna go sleep, and I end up just lying there for a while. How does one train themselves to kind of block everything out and go to sleep right away?
Yeah, so you must have a strategy and you must reduce your stress in the daytime because usually it's too much stress in the daytime that will just go on into the night. So what you have to do is the last 2 hours before you go to bed to calm down, dim the lights, read a book. You don't have to be unproductive or do nothing. You can read a book, like Warren Buffett famously reads, so and so many hours a day. So you can read a book, listen to an audiobook if that is if you prefer that. But just calm down, dim the lights. Light is very important. So we have a center in the brain that will detect the amount of light. And if you have too much light on in the evening, it will keep away melatonin, which is the important hormone that helps you fall asleep, but also do a lot of important processes while you're sleeping. So dim the lights and then stay away from caffeine, at least after noon, 12 o'clock. You should stop caffeine because it will still affect you into the night. You will still have 25% of the caffeine you have at 12 o'clock, still have it in your system then 12 hours later. So it will reduce the chances of falling asleep. And even if you fall asleep, the amount of deep sleep, your sleep quality will not be as good. So that's important. And also, you should not have a meal close to bedtime. It should be at least 3 hours from your last bit of food until you go to bed. Of course, no alcohol. That is the worst thing you can do for your sleep. What more? It should be rather cool. It should be maybe 60 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit in your bedroom. So if you manage to implement these things, that is important. And it's also important to have a good sleep consistency that you go to sleep and wake up at more or less the same time every day. That helps your brain go more effectively into the restorative sleep mode in a more effective way. So that is maybe the most important thing you can do. According to Whoop, I have the Whoop band on my right wrist here, and they take in information from the users, and they say that sleep consistency is the most important thing to have a good sleep hygiene.
I can just feel all those coffee lovers going, no, afternoon, I can't have any coffee. So you mentioned the Whoop band there. Is there any other
Mhm.
products that you recommend for people to utilize as trackers?
Yeah, there are lots of good quality trackers. And it depends on, it's just like a car. A car will bring you to where you want to go, but you can go luxury style or just have an old beat up car. But so most of the trackers will do a good job keeping you in the right place in the lane, not being overstressed and having a good amount of sleep. But the very best one would be the Garmin system that has a very good body battery system. Uh, it can show you the stress level in real time, and they have a very good algorithms that will show you. So that's my favorite option. It's also one of the cheapest ones on the low end of the scale. They have from probably $250 and up to probably 1,000 or $1,200 on the most expensive ones. Um, and you also have the Aura Ring. You have the Samsung Galaxy Ring and watch, which is also good. And the Whoop Band. So you have many choices, but I would prefer Garmin for the ones who really want to have a good look or window into their physiology.
Awesome. Now, when it comes to stress, what is some of the best techniques for people to handle stress? I find that a lot of it has to do with mindset as well. If you're very
Mhm.
easily aggravated by small little things, obviously your stress level goes up all the time.
Yeah,
So, how does
yeah.
one train their minds to be a little bit more, I don't know, either easygoing or more calm? What's the best way to combat stress when they actually sense it?
Yeah, that would be to take control of your breath, to be able to breathe slowly. Breathe preferably 6 seconds in and 6 seconds out, so that maybe you have 5 breaths a minute. So that is really calming down your nervous system, calming down because we have this kind of, I call it the inner living fossil in our body. This ancient system we share with vertebrates is like hundreds of millions of years old. It's a really basic system, just like the operative system, in your computers. It's you have the binary system, zeros and ones, at the bottom. And if you mess up with that, we couldn't be talking like this on the Zoom. So even if we have very advanced brains and advanced bodies, the base of it is really ancient, like really ancient, millions of years old. And if we don't take that into consideration and overstrain ourselves compared to what we are physiologically made for, our immune system will not have enough energy or enough be prioritized so that it will not be able to do its job. And we will end up getting all kinds of different diseases because we will have so much inflammation in our bodies.
So, are there like breath work exercises that you recommend on a daily basis?
Yeah. Yeah. So breath work would be good, and it doesn't only need to be like 5 minutes or 10 minutes at a time. It can be half a minute here and there, spread out all through the day so that you have, I mean, for me, it's almost being automatic. I do it before I even think I need to do it. So that is the most important thing. Of course, you can always do meditation, mindfulness practices, and you could also do cold plunges, the cold, even, just being cold in your office, or in the shower, or taking a cold plunge. You can probably do that in Canada as well as in Norway, I guess.
Just jump in the snow.
Um, yeah, or just jump in the snow. Just go barefoot into the snow. So surprisingly, when you see on your heart rate monitor, you see that that is actually calming down your system. Just like heat is overstressing it.
Mm.
So being too hot inside your house, in your car, being too warm with your clothes, and so on. It's quite stressful for your body actually.
So that whole thought process of like, oh, when we retire, we're gonna move to the Caribbean or move to Florida. That's where it's nice and warm. That's actually bad for you.
And no, not necessarily. It depends on the heat
Right.
because the sunshine, the sun exposure is also very important. So we've been kind of scared out of the sun, being scared of getting skin cancer and melanoma, but what the newer research shows is that being out in the sun and getting the energy from the sun that will affect our cells in a positive way is actually much more important for us. Of course, we're a species developed under the sun for millions of years. Of course, the solar energy that we get intravenously, so to speak, is important for the energy metabolism in our cells.
Mm.
So we see more and more the importance of it. And we will also see that in the heart rate variability. So your heart rate variability will be better in the summer than in the winter. Your blood pressure will be better in the summer and in the sun than in the winter time also.
I see. Now, for people out there who goes, okay, I need to get these watches, these little mechanisms to track my heart rate, to track my sleeping and stuff like that. What would you say that is most common for them to see for the first time, so that they're not freaked out?
They will be freaked out probably, like I was, because they don't need to be freaked out. But what they will expect to see is that they have been overtaxing their systems. As somewhere around 80% of the diseases that we are treating as doctors has its basis in too much stress. And when I'm talking about stress, it's not only mental stress, but it's stress from alcohol, from ultra-processed foods, from nicotine, from sugar, different stuff. So the diseases will be based in too much stress. And most people will see that they are more stressed than their wearables want them to be. And then can be a long process trying to find out how to manage this. But these variables will only show you the reality. So it's a reality check. You get insight into your checks and balances. This is just like if you're in your personal economy. If you have no idea what's on your bank account, if you don't know what a certain item costs in the store, if you don't know your wages and how much money you make,
Mm.
or the interest on your loan, you have no clue of this. It's very hard to manage your economy, right? And this is the same way in your body. If you don't know the stress and de-stressors in your body, you don't really have a chance to get a good and sustainable stress balance. So what you get with these wearables is just like an insight into your bank account. Just like you get, the receipt in the store when you see what the different items cost, and you understand that, wow, this was very expensive. It was something that you didn't expect to be. So you get this insight into your physiology and the heart rate, and it shouldn't be any surprise for anyone that your heart rate will respond to whatever is happening in your body. It's not rocket science, it's what has been known among physicians since the earliest physicians known to man. That's the first thing they discovered, that the heart rate and the pulse will tell you something about the condition. And of course, you cannot have a doctor checking your pulse all the time. So these wearables will keep track of the stressors in your life while you're busy living your life. You have your attention elsewhere.
Mm. So when people buy these products and these devices, are those already pre-programmed in to the optimal levels and ranges that people should be in?
They will calibrate themselves. So at least particularly the Garmin watches will spend like 3 weeks calibrating to your physiology and then give you more accurate, feedback on what is happening. So because the heart rate variability is different from every person, is highly genetic, the baseline. So they need to find the baseline and see where that is for you as an individual.
Now, something that I wanted to ask earlier was that you mentioned that you used to prescribe medicine and solutions for patients, and then you start going into this path of helping
Hmm.
heal and avoid having illnesses and all that kind of stuff. Have you found any pushback from your community of, oh wait, this is how we make money. This is how the hospitals work and doctors work. Have you found any negative pushback when you're focusing on the well-being
Mm,
side?
not so much, of course, in Norway because our it's a public health system, and healthcare is free or very cheap. Uh, so it hasn't been a subject of that. So, but I still work also in that way. So I still work at the ER. I still like in 2 days I'll be going north of the Arctic Circle, being on call 24/7 in a district. And the patients there, they expect, to go to the doctor and they present with a disease and I'm the one to fix it. That it's kind of my responsibility. And the idea that what has what kind of disease they have contracted has something to do with their lifestyle is something that they don't really want to hear anything about. So in that kind of job, I just observe and take in the information and do what is expected of me. I'm not going there and telling them that okay, you could have done something to avoid this, and then I'm leaving. It's not a good thing to do. But so what I try to do is to convey this through books instead.
Yeah.
So, and that has been really successful. I think my book has sold more than 40,000 copies at this time, in addition to audiobooks and so on. So it's in the US, of course, you're in Canada, but in the US, for example, that would represent almost 3 million books sold. So it has really changed. Like in Norway now, I get recognized on the street everywhere, and I'm a doctor. Which doctor gets recognized on the street? And it's just been a wild adventure here. It's been like being in a tornado for the last couple of years. Because it works, because it helps people to take control of their health, losing symptoms, and they do that. They tell everybody they know on Instagram and wherever. So it's really, I think that, antibiotics has been such a solution to the kind of old world, or still, of course, we have these infectious diseases, but antibiotics has been a really, really good way to have control of infections. But we don't really, as doctors, have much control of the stress-related diseases. And in my mind, and what it seems to me from the clinical standpoint, is that the way that we can control our stress levels this way is as important for the inflammation modern day diseases as antibiotics is for the infectious old world, so to speak, diseases.
You mentioned before that lots of people come to you who are already suffering from some sort of disease or illness, and they're looking for that quick fix. And it's
Mm,
difficult for sometimes for you to go, hey, well, why don't you start doing this on a day-to-day basis? You may or may not need the medication or the pills.
mm,
But why do you think it's so hard for people to accept that, hey, it's a lifestyle change, it's a life management change, and don't go for the quick fix?
mm,
Is this something that
mm.
needs to be implemented in like the educational system so that kids growing up understand that mindset from the very beginning? Like how do we
Yeah,
change that?
absolutely. Absolutely. But I think first, even the doctors have to know. Even we were not taught this, in medical school. And I think that 80% of doctors still underestimate the importance of lifestyle choices in creating disease. So it's probably but now with the podcast, where information goes so quickly out, um, this knowledge, is commonplace. It's everywhere. I'm on so many podcasts. I've been on probably on 100 American or Australian. I think this is one of the few Canadian ones I've been to. So, and everything is about this, nutrition, exercise, stress management, cutting alcohol, so it's more and more known, and the knowledge is spread very fast. And at least in Norway, in the young generation, there's a lot of knowledge about the importance of this. But I'm not trying to, regarding the patients, I'm not trying to convince anyone. My job is just to get the information out there that you can do this and you will stay healthier. Whatever you do, I don't care. That is not up to me. But I am responsible for spreading the word that you can do this and be healthier. And then it's up to you.
You mentioned that you spend some time above the Arctic Circle. And I think that's usually where you get some of your amazing photos done and whatnot. Hence leading
Mm.
towards you becoming an award-winning photographer. How
Mm.
has that come about? And that's not something that's very common in the medical field.
No, that's true. And but it was actually my way into medicine somewhat because I knew that both in Canada, I know, and in Norway, you can work as me as a freelance doctor. You can go into the districts where most doctors don't want to work because there's no prestige. It's you're just doing kind of the dirty everyday work of a doctor far out in the districts. And why I chose to work that way was to go out and travel the world, go photographing, getting experiences, having an adventurous lifestyle. That was what I was looking for. And being a doctor in this way allowed me to do that and bring my family along, and with our sailboat and sailing. We've been sailing halfway around the world until COVID hit and we had to sell the boat. But anyway, from photography, I was also teaching photography. So I had 60 workshops all around the world in Cuba, in Africa, in Sri Lanka, in Palestine, and many places, Morocco, France. And what I saw was that we are using our nervous system in a very profound way when we are photographing. We are hunting and gathering pictures, and we are sharing it with others in the workshop and of course in other ways in our lives. So it's a very, very good for our nervous system, and that was my entrance into the nervous system that I'm talking about in the Pulse Cure too. So that we are often overestimating the importance of our prefrontal cortex, where the information goes, where our thoughts are, the intellectual part of the brain. But I could tell that we are also, as photographers and also otherwise in life, using our autonomic nervous system, the self-governed nervous system, so to speak, and that it is more important than we previously thought. And that is what the Pulse Cure book is all about. Yeah.
That's very, very cool. I mean, it's very rare for somebody who goes, you know what? I love to do this, therefore I'll take this position as a doctor to allow to feed this part of my life as well. And did that
Yeah.
lead to you becoming a filmmaker as well?
Yeah, yeah, it was. So I made documentaries about pilgrimages and walking to Santiago de Compostela in Spain. There's a pilgrimage in Norway, these one month long pilgrimages, and the way that this can transform your life in many ways. So that was made for the Norwegian, the biggest broadcasting company in Norway. So they were seen by so many people. So and brought some and inspired so many people to go out on these long pilgrimages, which is obviously healthy. You're walking a long way. You have time away from your normal life, where you're kind of in a spider's web, in many ways. And people come home invigorated, with more vitality, of course, because you've been walking, you've been under the sun. Um, you you are in many ways a different person when you come back from your pilgrimage than you were before you went. And all religions usually have some sort of a pilgrimage to them where they have been walking for a long way to some particular shrine or something. So that is why I made those documentaries. But when it comes to photography, also, I think it was important to see healthy people. If you only work with sick people and that's all you see, you think that is the norm, and you don't know much about healthy people except for your friends. But as I was working part-time as a doctor and then part-time teaching people photography in some exotic place, and you will not find healthier people than them. They have been paying lots of money, going far away with a group they don't know, which includes walking, taking pictures, of strangers and sharing their pictures. So going back and forth between a very healthy population and a very sick population made it so much clearer to me what makes you sick, what makes you healthy, and so that I think was very important.
Mhm. What's your next big thing? I mean, you're juggling being a doctor, going all over the world, filmmaking, photography. What's that next big thing that people can look forward to?
I think it will, for the time being, I have 3 or 4 book projects on the way. I've already another bestseller in Norway out, which is called The Rest Cure, which is kind of a sequel to the Pulse Cure with more focus on rest. Because rest seems to be the hardest thing for people to find. You know, there are lots of books on exercise and nutrition and these other things, but to find rest and measurable rest, not only there are several good books on rest. It's about the philosophy around mental stress mainly. That what you see when you start tracking your stress levels is that you see that most of the stress does not have anything to do with the mental stress. It's the food you eat that you cannot tolerate. It's the alcohol. It's what we've been talking about. It's the nicotine for the ones used to use that. It's sleeping too little. It can be to be at an altitude. And many things will surprise you because these devices always also show the individuality that we're different, that what stresses you may calm me and the other way around, so that it will find your ideal way of living.
Mm. That's yeah, that's very, very true. I mean, I think some people out there think skydiving is very common, whereas other people is like, no, that's not gonna be coming for me at all.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, probably some people are getting calmer about that, but I think it's there's been some research, checking first-time skydivers with the seasoned skydivers and checking their sweat. So they still have more or less the same heart rate, but the first, the beginners, they are more scared. So there's more of a kind of a fear in the smell of these first-timers.
Mhm.
But
Very.
the skydivers will still get high heart rate and a raised heart rate from the experience. Otherwise they would quit. If it was becoming boring.
Having said that, is high heart rate the same as stress? And is exciting stress versus fear stress the same thing?
It will be a bit of a difference. So in general, a high heart rate will be because of there's too much stress, or not necessarily too much. We are supposed to stress. The most important thing is to compensate for the stress so that the balance is good, so that you're not overstressing, which we are not made for. When we put the wearables on hunter-gatherers that still exist today, we see that they're active like 3 hours a day. And the rest of the time, they are in a relaxed state. And of course, most people are not in that state now. They are in the stress state most of the time, and maybe just in the relaxed state hardly ever, right? And our physiology and our immune system is not made for that. It cannot function properly under these circumstances. So that is why it's important to balance this out and compensate with enough rest, just like the athletes do. But even though the heart rate may go up, both of positive and negative stress, if you're in love with your colleague or annoyed with your colleague, the heart rate can still go up. But the heart rate, your body will respond differently to positive stress than negative stress. If there's a positive stress and you think you're in the challenge mode and you think you can do it, if you're in the hunting mode, so to speak, then your cardiac output will be bigger, more blood being pumped out each time, and your vessels will dilate in your body, bringing more blood and oxygen to your muscles and brain and so on, and your different organs. But if you're in the fear state, you think that this is terrible, that the stress is not good for you, then you're in the hunted state, like for our ancestors, that the only time you were in this state was when another animal was hunting you down, and the blood flow will be different. The vessels will constrict in your muscles and to your organs to minimize the blood loss that it can anticipate, in this situation. So a negative stress over long time is really damaging for your physiology.
And over time, is it true? Well, can people convert negative stress into a positive stress?
Yeah, with your mindset. Yeah, absolutely. And there's research on this. For example, there's a famous the maids at the hotel. I don't remember what they're called, but the maids at the hotel that clean the sheets and cleans the rooms and so on. When they tell the maids that this is perfect exercise, what you're doing, making the beds, washing, that is very good exercise. When they think about it in that way, and not just being stressful and a boring job and just straining on their system, their blood pressure drops, their weight drops, their stress levels and cortisol level drops. So how you think about stress will affect the physiological results of that stress.
That is very awesome. I'll keep that in mind next time somebody tells me to clean the garage or clean something. It's gonna be good exercise.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome. Uh, well, you gave a lot of great insight on HRV, on stress, on sleep. If there was one more thing that you can give as an advice or recommendation, what would that be?
That would be, it depends on if you have many female listeners, but the menstrual cycle is also a huge stressor, or certain parts of it, which also men, of course, know because their women will behave differently for 1 week every month. And it's not just a mental state. When we see on the heart rate variability, we can see that the week before menstruation is a real physiological strain on their systems. And once you start to see that and you're able to mitigate the stress and reduce the stress levels, by the techniques in the pulse cure, then you can flatten the curve and you can be relieved of most of the PMS symptoms. So the PMS symptoms is an avoidable symptoms. You don't need to have them if you're good at stress management. So that would be the one thing I would add to this.
Oh, great. Thank you very much for that. That concludes our formal portion of the interview. I'm going to have five quick questions for you, rapid fire. Give me the first thing that comes to mind. You're
Mhm.
you're stranded on a deserted island. One food to eat for the rest of your life. You'll still be healthy, still be in shape. What's that one food?
I think I'd go for pizza, particularly because pizza is horrible for your stress levels. That's the worst thing you can eat, really, for your stress levels and blood sugar. So, but I love pizza and I would like to eat it if I can get away with it.
Having said that, I'm going to have to ask this. How's sushi? Is that good on your stress level?
It depends if they're adding chili to it. If there's chili to it or this green stuff, I don't remember the name, that can be stressful for me and for many people also. Yeah.
I see. Hollywood calls and goes, "Hey, we love your story. You're very inspirational. We want to do a biopic of you. Who would you cast to play you?"
Oh, that would be Russell Crowe in the Gladiator. So let's bring the Gladiator Russell Crowe back, and he can do it. Yeah.
Awesome. He shows up at your door and goes, "Hey, I got cast to play you. Let's have some fun. Let's hang out. Let's get to know each other." What does that night out look like with Russell Crowe?
What would that be? I'm not sure. Maybe hang out, just see what happens. Go out on town and not really have any agenda for the meeting. Just see what happens. That would be cool.
Just free flow.
Yeah.
So he's hungry, and he goes, "No problem. Come back to my place. I'm gonna fix you my specialty, my best dish. What's that food that you can prepare?"
Oh, I cannot make food. That is what I'm not, I think I have ADHD or something, but just the process of making food is just daunting to me. So I'm terrible. I would have to pass that one. I wouldn't hurt him by making food for him, right?
Okay, you
So I would have to call for a pizza and say just sorry.
awesome. As a photographer, what is that dream shot? That one shot that you're gonna always want to try and get?
Oh, that is hard, but maybe it's just a portrait conveying the personality of the person. I think that's what I like the best. And portrait photography is what I really like. Yeah.
Awesome. Give me a number from 1 to 5.
And that would be three.
1, 2, 3. So the word is a bison.
Bison, all right.
If you're going to use a bison as a metaphor for success, how is success like a bison?
Well, bison is very, very sturdy and can take a lot of cold and is tough when it comes to combat, and it can kind of scare you and be threatening to you, and you are watchful to it, and that maybe that's part of the success of the animal, and it can be some aspects of that could be used good to have yourself.
I see. That's how success is like a bison. Thank you very much for your time. Any final words from you, and what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, the final words would be that it's really possible to take much more care of your health, by taking it into your own hands by using your heart rate and these monitors. So that's the most important message. People can read my book. They can get it on Amazon, on everywhere. It's a standard published book. It's also an audio book they can get even on their iPhones and probably on Google Play on the Androids maybe also. And I also have a website called thepulsecure.com where they can see a video lecture where I'm talking about these things that we have been talking about. And on Instagram, I'm on Dr. Torkel, dr.torkel. So people can reach me there. And I'm on lots of podcasts, so they can also listen to other podcasts. They're all a bit different angle to it, just like today. So try to keep the conversations different every time.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. So for everybody, make sure you connect with Dr. Torkil here. I'm sure he has lots of great photos for you to look at as well. And then also pick up his book, Pulse Cure, Camera Cure, all available on Amazon, and also check out his website. Thank you very much again. He's Dr. Torkil.
Mhm.
My name is Fong. Until next time, today is the day talk your peak potential. We'll see you later.